To the thank yous to Rachel for all of the help that she does in putting together the conference. And everybody on Andrea's team, like the amazing amount of things that they pulled off, helping with the catering, which Rachel did as well, the production of everything, the marketing of everything. Kirsten behind the camera, Andrea just nonstop. So I really want to thank everyone, and it's a huge effort and wouldn't be possible without everybody that worked on it. So thank you so much, Andrea, your whole team, and Rachel as well. So for a time killer, I was going to do a little talk on things that I see. I think this is going off and on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why don't I do a hand call?
Yeah.
I turned it off. Okay. Is that working? Yes. Much better. Okay. This is just kind of the random way that I am, walking around and seeing things. And this kind of happens every year, either right before or after the conference, and it kind of frames my thoughts and kind of the passion for that year. But this year I was going to talk about the monuments and the murals you see around Chicago. Chicago has a very rich history in civil rights activism. And then we were driving here this morning on the way, and we saw a protest outside of an abortion clinic. And it reminded me of the protests that I saw when I was growing up, which, anyone that grew up kind of in the 80s, you saw these, and they're kind of hard to see as a child and a young kid, some of the things that were shown. And we all kind of looked at it, and I said to Monica Kachu, I said, well, history repeats itself. And I wanted to include a little Chicago history because of that. And so here's something that's not a monument, it's a song. Somehow people must be free, I hope the day comes soon. Won't you please come to Chicago, show your face. From the bottom of the ocean to the mountains of the moon, won't you please come to Chicago, no one else can take your place. So that's a song that goes on in my head before the conference, hoping that you all would show up every year. And I have to mention, because Rachel never heard of that, even though she was born and raised in Chicago, that was written, I think, the year that I was born. So before the time of any others. And it's by Graham Nash. It's an old hippie song, written in reaction to an anti-Vietnam War riot here in Chicago. In 1968, the Democratic National Convention was in Chicago. Before the convention began, on August 26, Chicago Mayor Richard J. Daley refused protest permits to most anti-war demonstrations and deployed 12,000 police officers, 5,600 members of the Illinois National Guard, and 5,000 Army soldiers on the streets to meet any who showed up. These police and military forces violently clashed with Vietnam War protesters, resulting in hundreds of injuries and 668 arrests during the 4-day convention. Yesterday we heard that protest permits were refused to the community members of Marangi, Zimbabwe, who wanted to protest the diamond mines when the World Diamond Council would come to visit this Tuesday. History repeats itself. Another history repeats itself. In Chicago at the World's Fair in 1893, Simon Pokagon, citizen of the Potawatomi Nation, wrote a speech on birch bark booklets, which he sold to attendees at the World's Fair. He led a campaign of awareness around the implicit role that gold played in fueling the tragedies created by colonialism for his people and all indigenous people of the Americas. This is what he wrote on one of his birch bark books. These strangers from the east long circuits made, and turkey-like they gobbled in our ears, give us gold, give us gold. Where do you find gold? Where do you find gold? We gave for promises and geekwas, I don't know what that means, all the gold we had, and showed them where to dig for more. To repay us, they robbed our homes of fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters. Some were forced to cross the sea for slaves in Spain, while multitudes were dragged into the mines to dig for gold, and held in slavery there until all who escaped not died under the lash of the cruel taskmaster. His words speak to us as much of the past as they do the present, especially for those in Brazil, and the message of Amazon Watch and APIB in their blood research gold papers. History repeats itself. Now here's some from monuments that I see. So this kind of started when I was, I think, driving down to the conference again with a car full of people. I think Stuart Poole and Chia from Diamonds and from Peace were in the car. And there was a billboard there. The way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them. Ida B. Wells, 1913. Ida B. Wells was a journalist, educator, and truth speaker in Chicago. And the legacy that she left behind with the civil rights movement, she left this legacy, known for her fiery and bold writings. Wells tackled issues regarding the political, social, and economic standing of Black people in America. And through her writing, she shed light on the racial and social injustices faced by African Americans during her time. Her most notable work was the investigative work reporting done on the lynching of African American men in the South during the 1890s. So I think the conference is about shedding light to try and right the wrongs and to show us a better way forward, to be in the light and come out of the darkness in the jewelry industry. Another time walking in Lincoln Park, I went and I spent the time reading the whole plaque there with Abraham Lincoln. And for those of you who aren't from the US, this is around 1860s. Abraham Lincoln was our 16th president in the United States. He successfully waged a political struggle and civil war against civil war that preserved the Union and its labor and created the possibility of civil and social freedoms for African Americans. And this one really hit me as I was working on the conference that year. Let's have faith that right makes might. And in that faith, let us to the end dare to do our duty as we understand it. Abraham Lincoln. I think that might have been around the time of the Human Rights Symposium on Diamonds. And that right makes might is something I think we all have to remember in our work, that we stay true to what we know is right, and in that we have might. So what is our duty as we understand it? As we understand it, as we listen, as we understand what we hear. Maybe our duty is in our practices as a maker. Maybe your duty is in your sourcing. How do you bring equity into your business and supply chain? Your impact on the environment. What is your duty? And how do you understand it? And then the last one is today, current. So the Museum of Contemporary Art here in Chicago had an exhibit by Nick Cave, and he's so magical. His artwork is just mind-blowing. I hope that, some of you can see it someday. And he actually, you've got to love this, he came to Chicago and he started out in the fashion department at the School of the Art Institute down the way, and he led the fashion department. So he has a fashion background, and now he is an incredibly world-renowned fine artist. And he expresses in his art, he has works to spark dialogue within the community on racial injustice and police brutality. And he has these sound suits, and the first one was created in 1992 as a response to Rodney King's beating by Los Angeles police. His most recent ones were made after the killing of George Floyd. So these are parting remarks, and I think we can relate to it because of his fashion background and coming from somewhere like we all want to do and make beautiful things in the world as artists. He says, I just want everything to be fabulous. I want it to be beautiful. Even when the subject is hard, honey, the question is, how do you want to exist in the world? And how are you going to do the work? Thanks for coming.